All right, this is GLP Interaction 2 by Jesse Nagelski. I interviewed Bob Wang. We drank coffee and talked about his motivation. We went to Starbucks in Wells Hall on Tuesday, March 27th. So motivation, Bob said he's really motivated by his personal interests. If he's not interested, he's not really motivated as much. He said setting clear goals for himself keeps him motivated because he wants to meet that goal and that timeline or whatever. Versus me, I'm kind of different. I'm motivated by grades, and I'm going to grad school, so I'm motivated to do stuff to help me for grad school. So we differ in those ways, I believe, for motivation. So this is a little overwhelming, but I broke it down into intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, and Bob's are on the top and mine are on the bottom. But we're both intrinsically motivated through enjoyment. He enjoys his research, and I enjoy learning about my minor, communicative sciences and disorders. So we both kind of connected on that. We enjoy what we do, so we're intrinsically motivated in that way. Extrinsically motivated, he said job consideration and future income kind of extrinsically motivates people. In the Chinese culture, him too. Publications for his research, that's definitely a motivator. He said he lacks motivation for grades. It's kind of the complete opposite for me. I'm like grades motivated in graduate school, like I said before. But I put A motivation next to grades because he kind of lacks motivation there. And I would say, like, we talked about barriers in class, and I don't really think me and Bob have a language barrier. Like, we can understand each other pretty well. But one barrier is he didn't really understand what intrinsic and extrinsic means. So I kind of explained it to him, and it helped me understand intrinsic versus extrinsic better as well. So it was kind of beneficial for both of us. Differences in the Chinese culture versus American culture in motivation. He said Chinese culture, the major, like what you decide you want to do, that's not really, that's like motivating because it connects to the college entrance exam. You pick your major like based on your college entrance exam. So like you're motivated in that way. And then that kind of connects to the future income. He said that's why a lot of Chinese students go to finance, business, and law because they're motivated to get a good income, and then your major and all that connects. But he also said family is a huge part of what you decide to do. They have a big say in it in China. So yeah, that was really interesting because here he talked about like you do what you want, like it's an interest motivator. You're intrinsically motivated to do what you enjoy to pick your major. He also said he talked about character development in the American culture. He's noticed a difference in the Chinese versus American. He said, you guys here are more like you want to work on yourselves and you're motivated to make yourself better. And so I thought that was really interesting. And he said admissions here are more flexible. In China, they're like dead set on stuff. So that was really interesting to see him talk about our culture and what he notices. So that was kind of cool. His motivation here, it hasn't changed much. He's pretty much the same motivation level, and but he enjoys what he does here, so that helps a little bit. But he also said his parents didn't push him towards a degree or university like most parents in the Chinese culture do. So I thought that was kind of cool to know that like he's not being forced. So it's kind of the autonomy. He gets to pick what he wants to do, which I talk about that later too, the self-determination theory. But differences in instructors and teachers, he said in America, in China, their teaching styles are very similar, the lecturing and all that. But he said in America, it's really nice that they promote questions and they offer office hours and they say, interrupt me and ask questions. And he said in the Chinese culture, it's not like that. In high school, they like focus on getting you your college entrance exam, getting you to college, and just moving on. And then when you get to college, they want to lecture through their stuff, and they don't want interruptions, don't want to ask questions. He says sometimes they'll offer questions at the end of class, but usually it's just like getting it through, and they use every minute of the class. So I thought that was interesting because that's how we learn here is we ask questions and learn. So very interesting. Random stuff. He said it's really weird that they serve raw veggies in the calf. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, in China, you always cook it. You never eat broccoli with just ranch dip. So I thought it was really funny. I'm like, wow, interesting. So yeah, that was something random we talked about. So connecting it to class. I connected it to the self-determination theory of student motivation. Competence. Bob felt he could successfully fulfill the task to come here and do what he enjoys. So he fulfilled competence, autonomy. He got to decide what he wanted to do. It wasn't his parents, wasn't his family, no outside force. He did what he had interest in. And the relatedness, he didn't really talk about if he feels like he fits in and belongs and connects with people, but he did say he really likes it here. And after, he thinks he wants to do this research his whole life. So I'm like, well, I feel like that means he enjoys it here, because who would want to be somewhere they don't belong? So he fulfills all the categories of the self-determination theory of student motivation. So that's how I connected it to class. 3 terms from the course: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. A motivation, when I was talking about how he's not motivated, he lacks motivation for when it comes to grades, and then self-determination theory. And that's it. Thank you.